of the Dodgers' winning percentage each season since 2000. Since 2013, the team has not had a season in which they missed the playoffs. They have now won 3 World Series in the past 6 years, and they don't look like they're going away anytime soon. This is what some may call a dynasty, a team that dominates their sport for an extended period, marked by sustained success and multiple championships within a relatively short time frame. Behind this dynasty exists this equation, an equation that shows just how dominant the Dodgers are in every area of baseball. These 4 factors are what the Dodgers have used to build a team that is consistently as good as it has been. We'll go through these 4 factors and the mastermind behind it all. Now, I know there's a narrative going around that the Dodgers are just buying these World Series titles. That is a pretty casual take on this whole thing. If you dig a little deeper, you'll realize that that is far from true. Spending money can build a contender, but alone, it cannot build a dynasty. The formula starts off with the most obvious factor, their strategic spending power. It's no secret that the Dodgers are one of the league's top spenders every year. They've had the #1 payroll in the league 8 out of the last 14 seasons. There are teams that spend a similar amount of money, but there are very few that spend it as efficiently as the Dodgers do. In the past 5 seasons, the Dodgers have spent roughly $6.3 million per WAR that their players have been worth each season. The going rate for 1 WAR on the open market is roughly $8 million, meaning that they're getting surplus value even with the volume that they're spending. And this is based on the luxury tax payroll, which takes into account deferred money that's paid after the contract is up, which the Dodgers have done a lot. Although this is likely due to the fact that not everyone on the team is on a high-cost free agency contract, so let's compare this number to some other big spenders, mainly the 2 New York teams. In the past 5 seasons, the Yankees have paid around $6.7 million per WAR on average each season. The Mets on average pay $7.6 million for each WAR. The Mets and Yankees have been far less successful than the Dodgers have been over the past few seasons, although they're always near the top in spending. That's because the Dodgers are the best strategic spenders among the 3. Take Freddie Freeman's contract, for example. The Dodgers signed Freeman when he was a free agent to a 6-year, $162 million deal. The AAV, or average annual value, of this contract was $27 million. If we take the value of $8 million per 1 WAR, Freeman would have to be worth around 3.4 WAR per season, or 20.2 over the course of this contract to meet his value. In his first 4 seasons on this deal, he's already crushed that number, putting himself at 22.3 WAR, or roughly $178.4 million. That's already $16 million in surplus value for the Dodgers on this contract, and he still has 2 years to play out. Let's do the same thing with the extension that they signed with catcher Will Smith. Smith signed a 10-year, $140 million extension before the 2024 season, which bought out 8 free agent years. That essentially means that the Dodgers took a hit to what they would have paid him the last 2 years, but now they basically have him on a 8-year, $112 million free agent contract. For this contract to be worth it for the Dodgers, Smith needs to average roughly 2 WAR per season for the next 8 years. When you look at Smith's production so far in this contract, this seems like a steal for the Dodgers. Now let's look at some of the spending that the Mets have been up to recently. They signed Sean Manaea to a 3-year, $75 million free agency contract before the 2024 season. That's about 9.4 WAR worth of value. After 2 seasons of that deal, Manaea has recorded just 3.2. That's looking like it's going to be a shortage for the Mets and not a surplus. Starling Marte just finished up his 4-year, $178 million contract, which is valued at 9.8 WAR. In that time, though, Marte was worth just 4.5, and that's roughly $42 million in lost value for the Mets in that contract. It's not like the Dodgers don't have these types of deals too. They do miss on a few here and there. They tend to minimize them though, and among the other high spenders, they maximize their surplus value. I know the story out there is that the Dodgers are only good because they spend all this money, but other teams have had similar financials, but nobody has matched the consistent success of the Dodgers. Part of that is explained by their efficiency in their spending, but also there are many other factors to this formula, the next one being player development. Here's a graph that shows the trend of the Dodgers' farm system ranking over the past 10 seasons according to Baseball America. They've never dipped below the top 10. This is impressive by itself, but the Dodgers have it harder than any other team to build up a solid farm system. they never pick near the top of the draft, their payroll limits how much they can spend on international amateurs, and they aren't selling off any of their stars in exchange for top prospects as many other teams do. When you look at the trend of similar teams, the Yankees are lower most of the time, and so are the Mets and Phillies. They build up strong systems occasionally, but are unable to sustain them once those players graduate. Now let's compare them to some of the teams that have the advantages when it comes to building a farm system. The Miami Marlins often find themselves with a high draft pick. There are countless examples of them trading away proven players for young talent, and yet they still can't touch the Dodgers. That's the same story with the Pirates, Rockies, A's, and other similar teams. This trend is not a fluke. It's something that the Dodgers focus on just as much as signing big-name free agents. Take a look at this graph. This is showing the size of each team's baseball operations department according to the latest info that I could find. These are the departments that build the team, choose the coaches that will work with the players, data scientists, developers, researchers, basically the brain of the team. The Dodgers have the largest baseball operations department in the league. This is not an advantage that the Dodgers have because of their market size. The Rays also rank very high, and they're one of the smallest markets in the league. Other teams with huge markets and revenue streams simply choose to not employ a brain as big as the Dodgers. This is because the Dodgers are dedicated to winning in every area they can. As a staff, we're able to spend a lot of time and energy in identifying superstar staff members and recruiting them and bringing them in and developing them, Dodgers farm director Will Rhymes said. The Dodgers don't just have superstar players, but a superstar staff building the team and developing the players. This staff, though, is not the only thing that needs to be credited here. The players themselves are great too, but the question is, how do they get their hands on so many good young players? That's explained by the next factor in the formula, prospect acquisition. It's no secret that the Los Angeles Dodgers have crushed the draft in recent years, and you should also crush the subscribe button because most of you watching this are not subscribed, so if you enjoy the video, that would be great. Players that they have drafted since 2014, the start of their winning streak, went on to produce 117.4 WAR. That's good for the 5th most in the league. This doesn't necessarily mean that all the value is for the Dodgers, but the players that they drafted have been very valuable. This isn't the end of the analysis though. We should really take into account the fact that the 1st overall pick is a lot different than the 30th overall pick. Here's a graph that shows the average value that each player produced for players drafted from 2006 to 2015. The 1st and 3rd picks are up near 20 WAR on average, while most of the picks in the 30s or 40s are near 0. This is what we expected. High picks are generally much more valuable than lower picks in the 1st round, and this line represents the expected value of each draft pick approximately. Now that we have this expected model, we can truly analyze how well a team is drafted in the 1st round by comparing how well they were expected to do given the spot they were drafting at. When adjusting for that, the Dodgers move their way to the top. They have drafted 72 WAR over the expected amount. The Padres are in 2nd, followed by the Yankees, Astros, and Cubs. Then you see a lot of the unsuccessful teams in the negatives. The Pirates, Rockies, White Sox, Twins, the Mets also find themselves down there, which is a reason why they aren't as competitive even though their payroll is on the same level as the Dodgers. Hitting on your 1st round picks is a pretty strong predictor of team success. Let's now quickly go through some of the notable Dodger draft picks over the past few years. In 2012, they drafted Corey Seager with the 18th pick, Cody Bellinger in the 4th round in 2013, Alex Verdugo in the 2nd round in 2014, Walker Buehler with the 24th pick in 2015, Gavin Lux with the 20th pick, Will Smith with the 32nd pick, and Dustin May with the 101st pick in 2016, Connor Wong in the 3rd round in 2017. In 2019, they took Michael Busch with the 31st pick. In 2020, they took Bobby Miller with the 29th pick. In 2021, they got Ben Kasparius with their 5th rounder, Emmett Sheehan with their 6th rounder, and Justin Robleski with their 11th rounder. All 3 key pitchers in their most recent World Series run. In 2022, they got Dalton Rushing and Alex Freeland, both currently highly touted prospects. That was a long list, and a list most other teams could only dream of having. The Dodgers seem to hit on at least one quality major leaguer every single draft, and some teams can go years without getting one of those. This is likely due to the approach that the Dodgers have when assigning their staff members. They have superstar scouts, superstar coaches, superstar developers that identify which players they should draft, and once they get into the organization, they develop them and maximize their value. But this is not the only way the Dodgers acquire prospects to sustain their top-tier farm system. Another way is trading. After the 2014 season, the Dodgers traded Matt Kemp to the Padres for Yasmani Grandal and others. Grandal went on to be worth 20.6 WAR with the Dodgers, while Kemp put up just .7 WAR for the rest of his career. Not too bad, I would say. During the 2016 season, they traded Zach Lee for Chris Taylor. Taylor would go on to accrue 17 WAR with the Dodgers, while Zach Lee was out of Major League Baseball after 2017. Not too bad. Before the 2019 season, they traded Yasiel Puig, Alex Wood, Kyle Farmer, and Matt Kemp, again, to the Reds for Josiah Gray and Jeter Downs. These two players never really worked out in the majors, but some of you may know why they're relevant, which we'll get into a little bit later. It's moves like these that help sustain the Dodgers' success over the past decade, and they're doing similar ones now that should support them over the next decade. To see that, let's look at how they've built their current farm system, the one that hasn't even affected the major leagues yet. First up is outfielder Josue DePaula. The Dodgers acquired him as an international amateur in 2022 for just under $400,000. This is the one area where the Dodgers haven't dominated in, but DePaula could be a start in the right direction. Next is number 20 outfielder Zaire Hope. Hope has near 5-tool potential and honestly should probably be ranked a little bit higher in my opinion, and the Dodgers got him in the Michael Busch trade. Next is number 34 outfielder Eduardo Quintero. He's another international amateur. Next is number 45 Alex Freeland, who the Dodgers drafted in 2022. Then comes Mike Sirota, who's the number 64 prospect. They got him for Gavin Lux in a trade with the Reds this offseason. It's safe to say that they won that trade. Lastly, pitcher Jackson Ferris lands at 98, which was the other player they got in the Michael Busch trade, and Emil Morales, a shortstop, is ranked at 100, who was a headlined international amateur in 2024. These prospects can be used in two ways, to help the major league team in the future, or to trade away for proven help now. The Dodgers have used both these methods. You might remember when they traded for Mookie Betts. They gave away former draftees Alex Verdugo and Connor Wong, along with a prospect they got in a trade, Jeter Downs. This would allow the Dodgers to negotiate an extension with Betts without him ever reaching free agency. The second biggest trade they made was acquiring Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals in exchange for Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray. We saw Gray before, who the Dodgers got in the Puig trade. Those two players were the Dodgers' top two prospects at the time, and it allowed them to go out and get two of the league's top players. The Dodgers' prospect acquisition system as a whole is really the engine that keeps this team competitive, and the biggest reason why they're even overshadowing other big market teams like the Yankees, Mets, Phillies, and so on. But of course, we still have one more factor to talk about, one that's the most recent frontier they've taken on, the international footprint. The Dodgers signed international prospect Roki Sasaki before this season, not because they offered him a huge contract, but because that's where Sasaki wanted to go. Since Sasaki was under 25 years old, he entered MLB as a prospect and not a free agent like his now teammate Yoshinobu Yamamoto did. This means that teams could not offer him a long-term contract, they could just give him a signing bonus and then he's under team control for 6 years, just like drafted players are. That signing bonus has a cap to it, and the Dodgers gave him $6.5 million. Not really a huge contract. The Dodgers have become the team that has the most control over the ever-growing international market, especially when it comes to Japan. This is not just something that happened overnight. The Dodgers have had dedicated full-time employees focus on Japan since the early 2000s. This quote from Scott Asasaki, who's now the Dodgers Director of Team Travel and formerly worked in the Asian Operations Department, explains pretty much all you need to know. You hear Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani and Roki Sasaki talk about one of the reasons they chose the Dodgers is because of its history. Obviously, the proximity to Japan and the community that we have here helps, but we have a really unique infrastructure. We have Japanese-speaking trainers, we have Japanese-speaking staff in the front office. You drop a Japanese player in our Dodgers clubhouse and it'll be seamless. This is another thing that every other team in Major League Baseball could be doing. But not only have the Dodgers committed to it first, they seemingly have also been the first to do it right. And because of this, they now have Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, and probably soon to be more stars that Japan produces in the near future. This is the formula that the Dodgers have used to become baseball's newest dynasty. And behind much of this Dodgers formula is one man, the mastermind, Andrew Friedman. Andrew Friedman is a baseball executive prodigy of sorts. The Rays hired him to be the director of baseball development before the 2004 season when he was just 26 years old. 2 years later, after the conclusion of the 2025 season, the Rays promoted him to the position of general manager at just 28 years old. The Rays ended up making the World Series 3 years later in 2008 and also made the playoffs in 2010, 2011, and 2020. Doing that with the Rays and the resources that they have to go out and sign star players is really all you need to hear to know that Friedman probably knows what he's doing. The Dodgers signed him to be the president of baseball operations in 2014, and he took the things he did with the Rays really well, developing players in-house, spending money efficiently, and maximizing the value of his players, and applied it with the much greater resources that the Dodgers have. So the Dodgers not only have the spending power of a big market, but they also have the ability to build up their players in-house. So while the narrative out there may be saying that the Dodgers are just buying World Series wins, that doesn't really capture the dominance that they have displayed. And even if they didn't have the huge payroll that they did, they would still be a competitive team because of just how good they are at everything else. Money can build contenders, but alone, it cannot build a dynasty. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.